and we saw voices coming out of the woodwork that we had never heard before. Why is this relevant? Because in the sport of college football, in my estimation, what you pointed to, Paul, although it was on a completely different issue, when you saw college athletes speaking up and speaking out and making demands, this pandemic coming down the pike and obviously the repercussions to follow, as we're now seeing, when you speak about those university presidents, chancellors, etc., being fearful of the athletes having a voice, the Trevor Lawrence, the Justin Fields of the world saying, we want to play, we want to play, we want to play,
I don't think
stuff like that.
I'm
saying they didn't forget the voices that they were hearing just weeks earlier and some of the demands emanating from that because of the social justice issues that we were all addressing ad nauseum over the national airwaves and beyond. I think that fear also transitioned to this because they constantly think about quelling and stymieing the potency and the power of others rather than doing what's right. What do you guys say to that?
Paul, do you want to comment, or should I go?
Go ahead, Max. I'm eager to hear what you say.
I think that may play into it, but I think, Stephen A., your original point, I was talking about that same point yesterday as it relates to why you can't do a bubble in college football, right? Because then you have to make it, at least I think it's 51% of the student body needs access to the same things the athletes have, or else you consider them labor. So I think your first point is really, whatever other influences there are, your first point is the deciding factor. Like, take that away and maybe we're in a different situation. The issue is the hypocrisy of college sports has been laid bare through this whole process. However much they want to talk about student athletes, when there's this much money at stake, of course it's about the money. And yet they don't want to say and set precedent now, okay, it's really unpaid labor. They're really workers. They want to avoid that at all costs. And in fact, I think that's foolish. I wouldn't let that animate my thinking were I in charge or in a position of authority in college football. I would instead try to get out in front of that issue so when things get back to as normal as possible, that's been addressed and it doesn't bring down the whole system. So I hear what you're saying. I'll bet you that's in the air, but I think your original point is actually the thing that decided events.
Stephen A., Max, I do like what you said, Stephen A., because I think that was the first chapter of this long, hot summer. And for all the window dressing that I hear from college leaders, and they will overwhelm you, they will suffocate you, and yes, they will nauseate you with their kowtowing, but I really don't think they believe it. And Stephen A., I don't think you do either. They talk about listening to the student athlete, but there was a call the other day between the Pac-12 players and Larry Scott, and almost everyone on that call from the athlete standpoint said he wasn't listening to us because he doesn't really care. He wants to make his $5.5 million a year. He wants to make billions from TV, and he wants to put up with what happens in the rest of his environment and empire. And I don't know where it's going to go, Stephen A., but I think the two things that are happening here are the demand for equality from the George Floyd standpoint, the social justice standpoint, and the demand for money. And if both happen, and I think both will happen, it is going to shatter the model of college athletics as we see it today. And a year from now, if we're having the same conversation, we are going to be looking at a repurposed intercollegiate